Start small and build. Habits are where it's at. So if you are at a place on your journey where you are ready to resume your journey toward sustainable weight loss, don't look for a switch to flip. Don't do another overhaul. You prioritize protein and veggies in your meal and walk every day and build from there.
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited because we have Miss Concita Thomas back with us today, and we are going to talk about habits. And by this time of the year, all of us have forgotten about our New Year's resolutions. We thought about these habits we're going to have this year. I'm going to drink this much water. I'm going to exercise. And for many of us, after 2 weeks, we forgot about these things. For some of us, we were able to keep up with them for a couple of weeks. Now, as the summer's coming, we're falling off of the bandwagon. I think this is very timely to help us get back onto the bandwagon and develop those positive habits that we want. So, Ms. Thomas, Ms. Concita, thank you so much for agreeing to be on our show. We really enjoyed having you on the first time, and we had so much positive feedback, but I really appreciate you coming back to talk to us again today. So, the first thing I'd like to ask you is a little bit, if you can remind us a little bit more about what you're doing or what you do and how you got into the health and fitness industry.
Yes. Okay. So I am a sustainable weight loss coach, and I got into the health and fitness industry really after solving my own problem. So, as many of us in the helping spaces, usually we've had our own struggle, and then overcoming that pain turns into a passion to help other people overcome that same struggle. And so, I'm very similar to most in the helping professions in that regard, is because my weight was something that I battled, not from childhood, but for sure in the early college days, all the way through and through some of my young adulthood before I figured out what I was doing.
And what role would you say that habits played in helping you achieve your goals? Do you think that you had to put in place certain habits to help you achieve it, or were there certain habits that you had to break?
Oh, absolutely, both. And I will say that part of the reason why I struggled with my weight as long as I did is because I did not really understand the role that habits would need to play in my weight loss being sustainable. So that is why I lost and gained and lost and gained that same 20 to 30 pounds for a decade because I just did not understand that habits were really the cornerstone to my success. So I did what most people do is I looked for a program that I could do, a diet, a workout, and really trusted that thing was going to be the magic bullet. And so I could quote unquote fix my problem with this thing and then figure out maintenance or moderation on the back end. And that just never really worked. Even though I was able to successfully lose weight and even transitioned into the wellness field, the turning point for me was really becoming a mom. Like when I conceived my first kiddo, it was a hard stop in terms of those really restrictive practices, those really extreme exercise practices, because so I was already married, I already had a business, and now I was responsible for a whole nother human. And there just really was no mental or physical capacity to continue to practice really extreme nutrition, extreme fitness. So I had to really come to terms with the fact that I needed to do things. It was not a program. It was not like which diet, which workout program. I needed to curate a lifestyle. And you would think that sounds so obvious when you hear someone say it, and it sounds so obvious to even hear myself say it. However, when you are in the throes of the struggle, it is not always obvious because you are really thinking in terms of not, oh, I want to curate this whole lifestyle. You're thinking in terms of what's the solution? What's going to work? What program can I do? And I know for me, and I find for so many other people, that it takes getting beat up a little bit by that approach before you can either acknowledge, accept, or even identify that, wait, I have to do things completely differently. So I had to, first of all, give up the habit of doing approaches that I was not willing to sustain for the long haul. One being giving up dessert, giving up carbs. I love dessert, I love carbs. So the fact that I was losing weight by giving up those things should have been a huge red flag that, like, okay, this is not sustainable. So I had to break that habit of picking short-term solutions, whether I realized they were short-term or not. And then I had to adopt a habit of moderation, or what I like to call surfing the middle, the habit of understanding which foods were really nourishing for me, understanding which foods maybe weren't so much nourishing, even if they were really enjoyable, and making it a habit to blend those two so that I never felt deprived, but at the same time that I was never just going off the deep end and just eating anything and everything and whenever and however much. So that was the habit I had to break and the habit that I had to establish.
Ah, okay. That is so good. That is so good. And I think it makes sense when you have kids, you have a busy family, and it's easy when you're on your own to do things in an extreme way, but you also have to be practical when you take other people into consideration. And also think about your kids too. Like they're going to pick up on your habits. If you have habits of restrictive eating, you also wonder, are these kids going to pick up on this? Is this a bit too much for them? You want to eat birthday cake on their birthday. You want them to eat their birthday cake, so you're going to eat their birthday cake too. So yeah, you have to have habits and a lifestyle that is healthy but sustainable. So thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's very useful. So going back, like breaking that down a little bit more, what are some of the practical habits that you instilled in your lifestyle to ensure that you have balance? Maybe if you can give us one, even up to 3 tips would be lovely. Because I'm thinking of that busy mom who has 3 kids. They're driving their kids to every activity. Maybe they're running a business. They're trying to spend time with their spouse. They want their family to have nutritious meals, but they also know that they want to eat healthy meals. So what would you say to that person to help them make this practical and sustainable? What kind of habits could they adopt?
Yes. So build your meals around protein and vegetables or produce. It could be fruit. So it doesn't mean that you don't eat pasta or that you don't even eat butter or, that none of that. It doesn't mean that anything's restricted, but it means that you do prioritize and build your meals around the protein and vegetables. And I'll give you an example of how this looks without being restrictive and how it looks in a family-friendly way. So as busy professionals, and for sure if you have a family as well, you may not cook every single meal at home, right? Every now and then there may be some takeout or some fast casual or restaurant dining. So let's just say that your family likes Asian food and the dish of choice typically is something like a shrimp fried rice. And when you're eating shrimp fried rice, you know that you're not necessarily nourishing your body. Yeah, it tastes amazing, but you're under no illusion that you're like eating healthy. So, but if you enjoy that flavor, the way that you can apply that advice is you can order shrimp and broccoli, because now instead of a meal that's mostly carbohydrates and fat from the oil, you have a meal that they have no choice but to give you an ample amount of protein and vegetables, because that is the dish, right? Shrimp and broccoli. And then if you really want that flavor of fried rice, instead of getting white rice on the side, you can get fried rice. But now you can serve yourself a moderate portion of that rice. So that is how you can prioritize vegetables and protein in every meal, how you can build your meals around that, but not eliminate the other things and not restrict and not feel like you can only have brown rice. I like to call that, those should be the main characters of your meals and everything else should be like a supporting actor. So that's one habit that I do across the board, and that's for my meals, that's for what I cook for my family. It just is what it is. Another one is movement daily, and it doesn't have to look a certain way. That doesn't mean go join a boot camp, go sign up for CrossFit. You have to be in the gym for an hour, like dying on the stair mill, but movement daily. So one practical way that I incorporate that into my life as a wife, a mom, a business owner is that one, I have a treadmill at home and I have a little desktop that goes over top of it. So granted, not right now while I'm doing a podcast interview, but if I'm responding to emails, if I'm checking on my clients in my client app, I'm typing, no one is seeing me, I'm not talking to anyone. I can do that on the tread desk. And obviously I'm not going to be going full speed because I like my teeth, right? I want to keep them. But I can do that at a moderate pace. And if I need to do administrative work for about an hour, then that's an hour of just movement that I can get in. Another thing that I love to do in order to keep this habit at the forefront is I call it now waiting time is walking time. And this is essential for moms because you alluded to the fact that we're driving people all over the place to their activities, etc. And how much time do we spend, like you and I are right now, with our booties in seats, just waiting, like It's not our event. Nobody's looking for us. My daughter's a swimmer. I asked her the other day, do you prefer if mommy's like in the pool watching you? And she's like, no, that's just weird. It's practice. At my meets, yes, but when I'm practicing, no. And the reason why I asked is because I do walk while I wait. So I'm not in there. I may come in the last 10 minutes just to see what's going on or if there's an announcement that the coaches have for parents. But I'm not sitting in the pool for an hour and watching her exercise while I sit there not exercising. And I checked with her about it and she's no, actually it's weird. And I guess she says that because there are not many parents sitting in there at this particular age. She's on a swim team now. It's not swim lessons. It's not mommy and me. So looking for those opportunities, those slivers of time in your day where you can sneak in some movement. Out when I go pick up takeout, or if I'm at a coffee shop and it's a line and you know you're going to wait for a while, just go out and circle the building. There's no magic in standing there and watching. It's not going to happen any faster. Very easy way to sneak in movement every single day.
Oh, I love that. I really love that tip because you're right. When you're in competitive sports, even some coaches are like, we don't want parents there because you're going to be the helicopter parent trying to tell us what to do. So the coaches appreciate it, your kids appreciate it, and it's good for you. So I love that tip that this could be your time to work out or even just take a simple walk. And even the cafe, you're right. We stand in line for a lot of things and we end up scrolling on our phone and buying things and doing things we shouldn't be doing, or like deciding, okay, now since I'm here, I'm going to eat that treat I didn't plan on eating. So I love that advice. It's very practical. And I can see how a lot of people can apply it. Another thing I'd like to ask you, which is not necessarily related to our diet habits and our exercise habits. You are a busy mom. You run your own business. Are there any time management habits or tips that you could share with us? Because
Yes.
all of us have challenges. Because I'm like it's like we drop, at least I'm thinking about myself. I find myself dropping the ball on a lot of things, trying to juggle X, Y, Z. But for the people who seem to be very efficient and on time executing things, there are certain habits for sure that they instill in their lives to make sure that they're on time and things get done on time. What are your tips? What are some of your tips?
I'll first say mindset shift is everything. Okay. So you heard me admit at the beginning of this podcast that like having children, or maybe it was before we started recording, I don't remember, but having children changed a lot for me about how I approached a lot of things. But it wasn't just like my fitness, my exercise, it was everything. So by nature, I'm a free spirit. I'm spontaneous. I'm not the friend who can tell you what her trip is for summer 2027. By nature, that's not me. So I fought its routines, schedules, tooth and nail until I could not any longer. So what changed for me was a mindset shift. And that mindset shift is that routine is actually freedom. Even though for someone who is maybe more naturally free-spirited, it may feel like restriction. And I'll be honest, that's why I avoided it for so long. I didn't want to be restricted. I was a grown-up. Who wants to be told no when they're grown up? You pay the cost to be the boss. You don't want to be told no. But what I realized is that when I did not have routines and when I didn't have schedules and systems, no matter where I was, I did not feel like I was at the right place. No matter what I did, I didn't feel like I was doing the right thing. And there were always things running in the back of my mind. It was like I had a million tabs open, always trying not to forget or trying to remember. Or maybe I'm working and, oh, I wish I could have gone to brunch with friends. I'm at brunch with friends and I'm like, oh my gosh, that project at work, like I'm going to be up all night. So I had to shift my mind to really embrace that, you know what? Routines are not restriction. They are freedom. Once I did that, the practical way that I do it, and this is ever evolving, like on my podcast, if someone looked back, so I always like to tell my own business first so no one could ever feel like I gotcha. You will hear at least 3 different episodes of me. One, my routines were rocking and rolling. So I was telling you how I was doing it. Another one, I was like, here's how I'm getting back on track. Another one, I was like, all my systems exploded. I'm tearing it all down and starting from the ground up. And I'm literally on day 4 of doing that again. And so what has worked is having days, themes, days for certain things. And even within those, having time blocks within those days. That is the overarching thing that has worked for me. But if I am saying that worked, and I'm telling you I burned it down a couple times, why? The reason is because you also, once you have a routine, you don't want to be blind to the fact that the routine may change. So if you find that you're not doing the thing that you intended to do again and again, it's time to look at why. Has a season in life passed, and are you in a new season? And are you trying to apply a summer routine to fall, so to speak? And that's what was happening with me. As my children got older, they went to different schools. They were more or less involved in different activities, whether my husband was traveling for work or no longer traveling for work. When I owned a brick and mortar studio versus now working completely online, all of those shifts may require a tweak or even a complete overhaul of your routines and your schedules. But I have days that I talk to clients. So I have coaching call days. I have days where are marked content days where I record my podcast, where I create whatever I want to write for social media. I have days that are networking days where I'm out of the house and I'm meeting with other business owners and people that I can maybe collaborate with. I have days that are more like personal days, and like I call it Friday frolicking. Typically Friday morning before noon, like between when I drop the kids off and noon, nothing else is going on except for whatever whim I have. And what that does is it helps me on a Tuesday when I want to knock off and not do content and go to Marshall's or TJ Maxx. Nope, Friday's coming. So that helps.
Oh, I love that. There's so many useful tips in there. I love how you're using your schedule. If I understand correctly, you have a rhythm where certain days of the week, you block times to complete certain activities. For example, you have your Friday AM frolic so that on Tuesday you're able to work. You have time where you're doing content creation, time where you're coaching clients, and then of course, family time. So I really love that. That's extremely practical. And I'm taking notes. I think I'm going to have to go back and listen to this because I took some notes on the diet, on the exercise, walking around instead of waiting for people, and the time. I think the other thing that I loved about what you said about the time, if you're trying to stick to a certain schedule and it's not working, go back and look at whether your season has shifted. Because I find that there's certain habits I'm trying to instill in terms of the way I manage my time, and I'm not actually implementing that time block. So at least for myself, I'm thinking to myself, I have to go back and look at what is going on. Is it time to shift my schedule? I think that's extremely useful. And the fourth area I'd like to talk about is business. I'm not sure what percentage of our audience are business owners, but I think a lot of people aspire, even if you work for somebody else, you're an entrepreneur, meaning that you are your own business within the business. You are marketing yourself to your employer. So whether you own your own business or you work for somebody, you are a business within itself. So I want to ask you, as a business owner, what are some of the habits that you have that you think have made you successful as a business owner? You talked about systems, which I liked. There's a lot of questions I want to ask you, but I'll let you freestyle it specifically in terms of what habits you think have helped you be successful as a business owner.
Oh, one is learning. It's funny. If there were a career where you could get paid to be a student, that's probably what I do. How they always ask, if you didn't do what you do, what would you do? It would be learning. I love to learn. And by learn, I don't mean just taking courses, running up against the problem, seeing that it's a problem, and then learning whatever skill it is that I need to go around that problem or to overcome that problem. Especially now, like we have not just the internet, we have artificial intelligence. Things change so quickly, and it's really easy when you find something that works to get stuck in that and just want to do it. But even if you change nothing, things will change. And so you have to be willing to learn new things so that you can also pivot and to continue. So I think that is one key habit. Another one is being bold, like having the habit of being bold, like to put your perspective out there, to say what you believe or to say what you're learning, to not that you are doing things for the spotlight, but to not shy away from the spotlight, because we all sell something, whether it is our ideas, our services, if it's really a product. And if you are afraid to be bold, if you are afraid to go on record and to say what you believe or to share your experience and give yourself full permission to say, hey, I'm still learning and my perspective may change. And if it does, I'll be back and I'll update you. I feel like you have to do that, because if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't share what you believe, if you don't draw a line in the sand, if you are too shy to say how you can help people, then you could literally be sitting on a gold mine, not necessarily just in revenue, but in terms of you could be the answer to someone else's prayer, but they don't even know you exist because you're afraid to open your mouth.
That is so good. Yes, being bold is so important. And there is definitely, you have to use wisdom, know your audience, know that there's like a time and a place. But I think a lot of us tend to shy away from sharing our ideas or sharing what we're doing that is making us successful. So thank you so much for sharing a lot of your ideas. And I still have more questions specifically about learning, like loving learning. What are some of the top or your favorite books that you're reading right now?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so if I'm really honest, right now, I'm not reading anything, but I can share. And that's the other thing. So I'm glad you asked that, because I will go through periods where I'm like consuming everything. And then I will go through periods where I'm just heads down implementing, because everything you learn, if you're always consuming, then you could be just like throwing yourself in a million different directions, because everything you read, you can extract gems from everywhere, and you could get to the point where your roadmap is a tangled ball of yarn, because you got this great idea from here and you've got that great idea from there, and you're trying to marry them all. So actually, the only book that I'm currently reading is called Words on Fire, and it is a children's novel, and I'm reading it because my daughter read it in school and she told me it was so great and she wants me to read it so that we can have discussions about it. But some of my favorite books are The Power of Habit by Charles. That is a really one that I come back to again and again. Atomic Habits is a one that I come back to again and again. And even when I'm not in like consumption mode, those are two that I will just read excerpts from, because they apply to everything. And they're, how can I say this? They amplify whatever it is that I am doing, as opposed to give me another direction to go on. Atomic Habits is all about like doing the small things consistently, stacking them. So whether I'm working on a new marketing campaign or creating a new resource for my clients, that supports that, as opposed to planting an idea that I should be going in a whole different direction. What about this thing? And I can say the same for the book, The Power of Habits. So those are my two top ones. And I often send my clients a copy of Atomic Habits, because I'm like, this is like the undercurrent for everything we're going to do in our work together. So the better you understand this, the better you'll understand why I'm saying, no, we are not starting out with 10K steps a day when your health app shows that you fall into the average office worker. You do 2,000 to 4,000 a day. We're not starting there. Here's why.
That is good. And I love Atomic Habits. I've read it as well. And I think people can find it in an audio version. We'll make sure that we put the link to the book below. And then remind me the name of the second book.
The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. So it's Atomic Habits, James Clear, and The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg.
I'll definitely look up The Power of Habits as well and add it to my list. I have this ever expanding book of, and I'm going to be honest as well, I don't read them. I listen to them as like I'm walking around or cooking or cleaning. So yeah, I think learning and enjoying learning is an amazing habit. And the last question I want to ask you is about AI. So you're talking about how AI is disrupting the industry. What are some of your favorite AI apps and tools, like whether it's in your personal life, your fitness, whether it's social media creation or business strategy?
So ChatGPT is one I really enjoy. I just had it in my whole burn down the schedule, make a new one. I literally had it help me with that. And so I really enjoy that one. And then I use a lot of the apps that I use for business have AI integrated now. So I'm not necessarily using a million different AI apps, but almost every app that I use for business has some AI built in. So then I do absolutely leverage that.
Yeah, you're right. AI is getting incredible. It's exciting. ChatGPT, I think I compared it to Gemini, and I'm finding Gemini sometimes gives more robust answers.
Yes, and I do use Gemini because it's built into Google, and that's my preferred search engine. And with ChatGPT, you're right. So Chat and I, sometimes we have intense conversations because I challenge what it tells me sometimes. And it's very interesting because if I point out, no, I don't like this answer because, and this can come off that way, have you consider? And it's great catch. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. That's very wise to challenge what it's saying. I found too that I found myself arguing. It was really silly. One, my friend was like, you should buy the paid version. So I get the paid version. I'm trying to combine 3 documents. I'm like, combine these documents. And it'll take me some time. I'm like, can you work while I go to sleep? And this in the morning, it's like, I'm still working on it. Then finally I realized this thing can't actually do it. And silly me, instead of just saying, okay, fine, it's AI. It's just coming along. I decide to try and argue with the thing and try to correct it and get it to say I made a mistake. And of course, these things are not going to say they made a mistake. So I understand what you're saying by arguing with them. But you're right. We have to look at it with a side eye and like critique some of what it's saying. And I think my favorite one, I'm going to suggest that people in the audience and you also look up, is called Sintra AI, especially if you're into business. So it has 12 different agents, and the agents can help you with different tasks. One is, and I think, a personal assistant, can manage your emails, can help you with your schedule. One is like SEO optimization, so to look on online and ensure that your content is SEO optimized. And I think the price is pretty decent. You get up to 12 agents. It must be like less than something like US, maybe $40 or less US per month. I don't remember the exact price. But for 12 agents, I'm like, it's pretty decent. And it actually suggests stuff to you based on the information you feed it. It'll ask you questions and say, what do you think about this project? And you can say yes or no. So for me, that has been my favorite one lately.
And I have not heard of that one, so thank you for that.
It's my pleasure, but it's incredible the rate at which people are creating agents. It's very fascinating, very exciting, definitely scary for some people. But I think if you go in it with a mindset of like, how can I help it expedite or do what I'm doing better, then it's not as scary. And I don't think they're not smart enough yet to take over our jobs. And I think also having that habit or that mindset of perhaps questioning what it's telling you. Yes, take the information, but take it with a grain of salt. Also makes it less scary, because at the end of the day, we know ourselves. We are humans. We're the ones who are creative. We're the ones with a soul. You can't replicate a soul. You can mimic it, but you can't replicate what we are, our essence as human beings.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I'm going to wrap up our interview, but thank you again so much for taking the time to be with us and to share some of the habits that make you successful. For our audience members, if you guys are looking to improve your health, you want to get into shape, you want to do it in a way that is sustainable and realistic, and you want to work with a personal coach, I recommend Concita. We're going to make sure that we have all the links to her podcast if you guys want to listen to her more, and to her website if you want to work with her. We'll make sure we have all the information at the bottom of our show. But thank you once again for agreeing to be on our show. Is there any last words or last tips you'd like to share with our audience?
No, just really get started. Get started, start small, and build. Habits are where it's at. So if you are in a place on your journey where you are ready to resume your journey toward sustainable weight loss, don't look for a switch to flip. Don't do another overhaul. You already know how that's going to end. And if you don't know, just take it from me. That's not going to end well, and just get started with habits. If nothing else, prioritize protein and veggies in your meal and walk every day and build from there.
Oh, I love it. That is very simple, but very realistic. Thank you. And again, for all of our audience members who want to learn more about Concita, we'll make sure we have her information in the show notes. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.